Hello, this is Benjamin Boyce, and welcome to the Voice of Reason podcast. Today's guest is Kat, who was a moderator of the Reddit subreddit True Lesbians, which was unceremoniously axed by the Reddit administration on July 9th, 2020. She hasn't discovered a specific reason why this one community was stamped out. In this discussion, we cover Kat's moderation and involvement with lesbian communities over the course of the last 25 years online, and she brings to light a lot about this community and this community's treatment within the broader LGBTQ community. It's very fascinating stuff, and I learned a lot, and I'm sure that you will too. So without further ado, here's Kat.
So I'm really just, a plain person, and I took True Lesbians from, I took over the sub when we had about 300 members, and I took it from 300 to up to 15,000 when it was banned last week. And, and I thought, honest to God, I thought we were too small to really matter to anybody, Like there's this other sub out there, Actual Lesbians, and they've got like 300 subscribers, and and they are very inclusive. And the ongoing joke on Reddit is that Actual Lesbians has everything but actual lesbians, because it was, just like this melting pot of, whoever wanted to join in, which is great. And the world needs places like that. They've had their sights set on us literally from day one. And, they considered us a hate sub, and they reported us numerous times over the years. They've, their members would come into True Lesbians and purposely attack us, and we, as a matter of fact, it was so crazy that if somebody came into True Lesbians and made a post or commented on a post in True Lesbians, whether or not they ever went into Actual Lesbians, they were immediately banned. So like they were so closely watching everything that we did that they didn't want anybody that ever posted onto True Lesbians to ever come into Actual Lesbians. That's how much they disliked us. And, I would just laugh and shrug it off because, to me, the whole thing was just silly and juvenile. So, and I don't have time for that kind of drama, And it was even funnier when they would accuse us of, coming in and brigading their sub, and downvoting things and blah, blah, blah. Well, we weren't even able to do that because, we were all banned. So, it was like the ongoing joke. As soon as people got banned from Actual Lesbians, they would come to True. It was, just silly little Reddit wars.
So what is the parameters of exclusion or the parameters of belonging to True Lesbians? What's the litmus test of being a true lesbian?
And that's pretty well spelled out, or it was in our rules. Born female, attracted to female exclusively, right? So we didn't exclude like one group of people. We literally excluded everybody. If you were bisexual, and we respect bisexuals, we respect, the trans community, we respect the pan, the straight, the gay men's, all of that. We respect all of those things. Just didn't want them posting in True Lesbians because True Lesbians was designed to be focused on just female lesbians, and that was it. I mean, we would get people coming in and making a post, and they would say that, hey, I'm a Kinsey 5, and you would get a ton of downvotes. I'll get you there in a minute.
Okay. Don't know the lesbo lingo. I'm not. So I hope you can educate me.
It's fair enough. It's okay. So the Kinsey Scale is a scale of 1 to 6. And, if you're a Kinsey 1, you are 100% heterosexual, straight. If you're a Kinsey 6, you are 100%, gay. Gay, lesbian, whatever. Anything in between is considered, bisexual by many standards of some form, right? So a little bit attracted, in one direction or another, but whatever. And anyway, so there was always we would get requests from Kinsey 5s. Can I, belong? I'm primarily, attracted to women. Also, there's another acronym out there. It's called FEB, FEM, FEB, FEM. It's called Female Exclusive Bisexual Female. Right. Yeah. Female Exclusive Bisexual Female. FEB, FEM, FEB,
so
FM.
You might find Superman hot, but you would never actually touch him. Kind of.
Yes, exactly. Like that.
Okay. See, I'm a quick study here.
So many of the women in True Lesbians had problems with FEMs and, Kinsey 5s and whatever, and I really have I have no animosity toward any of these different groups of people, because I think the world needs these different groups of people, right? All I was trying to do was, make a community for, female-born women who are lesbians. And that's all that, literally that's all we were trying to do. And that is what got us branded the hate community.
What kind of support would you would be given and fostered in that community? What are the issues, kind of loosely speaking, what are some of the issues and some of the support that you guys developed for this group?
We had, like I said, we had up to 15,000, we had over 15,000 members when we were banned last week. And, and when the first round of Reddit bans went on, we turned the sub private because, we just wanted to double check our rules, make sure that we weren't breaking any rules, make sure that, we had a clear path going forward so as not to break any Reddit rules. And, when we turned it back to public again about a week later, we got so much support saying, oh my gosh, thank goodness, I'm stuck out here in this, Middle Eastern country and I have nobody to talk to. I have no support system, whether they are, in a Middle Eastern country or they're in the middle of the sticks somewhere in central, in the center of America, so there was a lot of, how can I meet people? How can I, feel like, I'm part of a community or, and then how can I come out to my parents? How can I, come out to my family? How do you feel when you're at work and you're the only gay, you're the only lesbian at work, right? Mm-hmm. So it was like, people would have different topics, like, hey, what are you guys using for, for cramping? Forgive the female, but it was a place where people could go and talk about, ovaries without, being interjected in saying that we're being, insensitive to people that, don't have ovaries, right? Yeah. So, and I thought I closed this down.
Would you be able to give, because you mentioned or you make a passing reference to having been on the internet for some time. Do you have like a kind of a history that you can give of online lesbian communities and how that has shifted over time and your participation? And
yes, as a matter of fact, I can.
Great.
So yeah, I told you early on that my screen name is My Cat Ate It, and that started from my AOL days. And so I remember it was back in in the early 90s, and AOL was all the rage. And I was helping my first grade daughter, with her homework, and, and was like pulling teeth to try to get this child to sit down to do her homework. And then after we were done, I went up to my computer and I sat down and I went to go make a new screen name on AOL, and I had to come up with something that was 7 letters or less. And so I'm trying to come up with things, and anyway, it just I couldn't come up with a name that wasn't already taken. I was like, this is worse than doing homework, like maybe my dog ate it, but I didn't have a dog, so I had a cat. So was born the name My Cat Ate It. And I was a board moderator in AOL. It started out being in Tech Live in AOL, and I was one of the AOL techs at Tech Live, and so I was working with AOL for a long time. And then after Tech Live shut down and went to message boards, I was a message board moderator. Then I went over to the Planet Out boards, and Planet Out was a website, was a gay lesbian website back in the 90s, where people would go. It was kind of like gay.com, but it was like the women's version of gay.com. Okay. And so anyway, the Planet Out boards, where, you had the lesbian boards and the bisexual boards and all of these different boards. And so I became a moderator of the message boards over in Planet Out. And then that kind of morphed into the LGBT community in AOL. And so I stayed on as moderator there. So from 1995 through, I want to say 2005, 2006, I was a moderator of the LGBT community in AOL, and I was, monitoring these message boards, and there was this group of women, and it was like the WWET. It was the East. We had an East Village. We had the Women Who Enjoy Thinking. The WWET was the Women Who Enjoy Thinking. We had an East Village, board, and, like different places where you could go and have different conversations. And so, there was always, bickering between the women, but there was a core group of women. And would you believe it, that even today I am friends with these women on Facebook. And, so now we know each other actually in real life. And it's been, good grief, has it been 25 years?
Wow, yeah.
So we've known each other for a really long time. We feel like, we're actual friends and family. And that's the way I always envisioned true lesbians to be. So, I kind of pictured a very similar community where, women could go and, bitch about their day, talk about this, talk about, what their partner's doing or not doing, or, or how do you, how do you guys handle this? Or, what are you cooking for dinner tonight? Or just a place to go and hang out, right? So like a little, virtual coffee shop kind of thing. And I don't even know how it got to 15,000 members. We just don't know how. But, as word got out and people came in and they saw that it was a really supportive and, loving atmosphere, for women. And when other people would come in, they wouldn't just get blasted. Like if a bisexual came in or somebody came in, to post something or comment on a post or whatever, the response from the women was generally like, we don't have very many spaces left in the world that are just for lesbians. Please, please respect our rules. And, and you can come, you can read, but please don't post. This is our space, and that was generally the response that that some, non-lesbian posters would get, and then of course the mods would go in and we would remove the post, so, and most of the people, understood, and they were like, hey, sorry, I didn't mean to break any rules or anything like that.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, get out, you non-lesbian. That was never like that. That's just not, what we were going for.
Is there, do you have any insights into why you think that there's been such an erosion of female exclusive spaces and when that started picking up and why you think it's happening? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Oh, goodness. There's, one might say that the current members of the White House have a lot to do with that. Just simply, not hearing women's voices. And, a couple of years ago, my partner and I and some friends went down to Key West. And one thing that we found was the lack of women's spaces, where Key West used to have a number of, exclusively women resorts and places to stay and things like that. So I suspect that, with the inclusion, the inclusive climate of the country, there became less of a, people started feeling that there might not be a need for women to go and congregate with other women on a regular basis. And I'm not sure that that's, truly the case, although that may be the, the overall concept or, belief at large is that, hey, if women can be there, then anybody can be there, right? So, and generally speaking, in many, many places in the world, that should be true, and that is true. But, there are also many, many places in the world where, women are, beaten and raped and, murdered just because they happen to be women. So women, humans are very social creatures, and we want to be able to socialize with people that like what we like and, think as we do, or even present us with a differing opinion, but, you still have that camaraderie of, that we do have so many other things in common. I want to hear your side, whether I like it or not like it, but, I do need to hear it. And, it's nice to have that inclusive place, but when did it start? It likely started, around the time that the gay and lesbian rights became mainstream, I think, because people, say, oh, well, you're just one of us now, and we don't have straight bars, so why do you need a lesbian bar, or, why do you need a lesbian, spot to go? And I'm concerned that, as the spaces continue to diminish for women alone, that they may start pushing many of the gay and lesbians back underground, because we've worked so hard over, the last 50 years to try and, gain equality. And we do have the equality now. But all of a sudden, it feels like we're not part of the LGBT community because, because I'm strictly, a lesbian. I'm strictly dealing with women, attracted to women, and I don't know if the gay community, the gay men's community is feeling the pressure, like the women are feeling, but, there are plenty of women out there that, are just like, they don't want some of their spaces impeded by, people who were formerly identified as male, whether or not they now identify as female. And this is very triggering to some of the women. I'm not one of them, but for many it is. And just all we were trying to do again is give them that safe space that they could call their own.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Why do you think that the idea of exclusion is cast as hate and then used to kind of dissolve that exclusivity? I mean,
and of course, I can only speculate, right? Because I don't really understand it myself. Because I know that we've never done anything or intended to do anything hateful. I wouldn't even be able to sleep, if I felt like I did something that really harmed another person. So there's a term out there. It's called TERF, TERF. You're familiar,
yes,
right? So the trans exclusionary radical feminist, right?
Yeah.
Whatever it's, whatever it is, And my response to that is, I'm not a radical anything. I'm like peace, right? So, okay. And live your life, be happy. We only get one shot at this. Do whatever you need to do in order to make your life, positive and right for you. And I can only live my life in a way that is right for me, right? So I'm not going to take your advice, and clearly you're not going to take mine, and that's okay. But so, and I'm sorry, could you repeat your question so that I make sure that I answer it? Because I want to.
It's an interesting phenomena that the ideal of inclusion is being radically weaponized to exclude groups that aren't inclusive. And so the question is, under what level of analysis does it make sense that exclusivity equals hate? Why is that the charge that's leveled over exclusive group?
That is a great, yeah. So, and again, that's still a great question. And I still don't know the answer to that, but you're right, it does. And that's why I think if we don't include everybody, then we must hate them. And that's just simply not the case. Like I sit on, I was on a local LGBT Chamber of Commerce board of I was on the board of directors for the local Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce, and they're all over the United States. Please, by the way, if you don't know about them, seek them out. But so in every walk of life, I'm as inclusive a human being as you will ever find. So if we just say, hey, we want this tiny little room right over here, just for, this little group of people, that doesn't mean that we dislike anybody else. That's not at all what we're saying. And so I don't understand why we were branded so hateful as a result of all of this. I don't get that. And, so, and it's somehow ironic that the hate that they spew upon us, calling us haters, is not considered hateful, but we are. So it's almost like a double-edged sword. Here's your space. Let us in. Well, all right, come on in. Well, now you don't belong here because you're not one of us. So, okay, then we'll go over here. Well, let us in. So,
yeah, some sort of weird liberal version of the Big Bad Wolf and the Three Little Pigs kind of thing. Or Monopoly. Okay.
Right? You keep running from house to house, and it's never good enough. But I don't know why what we've done is considered hateful, and what others have done to us is considered acceptable. Because we've been called names, we've been threatened, we've been doxxed, and it's crazy, some of the awful things that get said to us. And and I don't even get it, and so my username is branded like this hateful person, right? So if I go out on Reddit, and I go to, let's say a different lesbian sub, it's like, oh no, you're not welcome here. You're a TERF. But I'm not.
And do you see, it's hard to know because it's Reddit, but do you perceive that coming from females? Females are going along with this.
And of course, it is hard to say. It's hard to say because unless, somebody says, hi, my name is so-and-so, and this is, my sexuality or gender identity or whatever, it's really just a screen name, which is why I've never really given it a whole lot of weight, because to me, it was no different than chatting on, a message board on AOL. I mean, it's just the internet, and so many people took things so personally and just reached out. And anyway, that's all I have to say about that.
Well, I'm wondering on an anthropological level of query or curiosity, having been involved in female exclusive groups for 25 years or so, probably before the internet, what are some of the strengths, but also what are some of the tensions, the persistent tensions within female-only spaces that you've seen and had to kind of manage? What are some of the things that, just the patterns of behavior that you have to be aware of in a female-only space, just because of the psychology that you've witnessed?
Gosh, so the bickering. Women love to bicker, and whether
could you answer why? Am I allowed to ask why?
And I wish I knew, but they love, so many women just love to scrap, right? So they're and that's really what I call it. It's really more scrapping than bickering. And it's, and most of the time it starts out harmless, and, and as scrapping often does, it escalates to bickering. And, and then the locking of the horns. I'm right. No, I'm right. No, I'm right. And, and that happens when you have very strong-minded women, independent women who are, used to life and doing things a certain way, their way, getting things, by literal brute force because they've had to work so much harder than their male counterparts, right?
Okay. Yeah.
To get that high paying job, to get that, high visibility, career, it's just one of those, female ingrained things. We have to work so much harder than our male counterparts. And no offense to my present company, but that's just the way the world has always been. And women have always been treated, as the lesser of. And so in order for us to be taken seriously, we've had to work hard, and we've had to, express our voices and really kind of push our way in. And so when you get some strong-minded women and a controversial topic, you're going to have scrapping.
Okay. Have you seen that that escalation kind of develop into something else? Is there like a next stage after those horns unlock? Does that happen? And is there like a development of friendship that kind of proceeds along that line that's then kind of eventually harmonized or resolved? Is that something that happens?
So women are funny creatures. Many of them will just develop a mutual respect. They may not ever like each other, but they may have at least a mutual respect that this person can hold their own in a conversation. They might not agree with anything that they have to say, and they may not necessarily like the things that the other person says. but they can cohabitate in the same internet space, quite well. Other women, not so much. There are other women that are just like, you've got this completely backwards, concept of the world, and if you think that any person, if you think that there's any male out there that's not gonna, not interested in harming you, you've got a complete, disproportionate, view of the world, and there's nothing that you're ever going to say to convince them that not all men are horrible, dangerous creatures. That's the way that they're going to be, and they're very, steadfast in their beliefs, and we had quite a few of those on True Lesbians. We had quite a few of those, and but they needed a home too. So,
and was there an ability to establish kind of a marketplace where different levels of strong-willedness were able to cohabitate? Was that, or did it always, do those kind of people end up kind of going away, and like a fracturing of the community that happens along those lines?
No, we didn't have an awful lot of people. Well, some people went away. Many of them may have found the gender critical and the radical feminists subs, more to their liking than, True Lesbians. We were trying to be more of a, loving community support community. Yeah. And some people would get tired of, somebody coming in and complaining about this, or, whining about that. And, oh, woe is me. I have this problem today. And, what would you guys do? And many of our community members, embraced those and said, hey, like if there was a dating issue, I met this person, I got ghosted, and, and I don't know what I did wrong, and, was it me? Was it, whatever, maybe I'm ugly, maybe, maybe my personality sucks. I don't know, And so then the women would come in and either be supportive or, just shut up and go home. You're fine. And, so
the whole spectrum of love, from tough to soft.
Yeah, right. The tough love to the cuddle love. So, and if you try to corral 15,000 women, it's like herding cats. You're just not gonna do it.
So what's the plan going forward? You're trying to petition the Reddit admin with no results so far to let you guys start back up. Do you guys have another plan, another place to go?
We do have a few other plans. Right now, we've started there's a sister social media site called SAIDit, SAIDit.net, SAIDit.net, and so we have the lesbians sub over there, and so that's our temporary stomping ground, and we also have a Discord, which is by invite only, and at this point. And also there's a complete website, social media in the process. But in the meantime, we're using SAIDit and Discord to stay connected with each other. And I wish I was able to download, the 15,000 members that I had, so that I could reach out to them and say, come find us, come find us. And before, once the first wave of Reddit bans happened, that's when Max, she was one of the co-moderators, Max set up the SAIDit sub, and then we started posting links, so that people could find us, and hopefully, and quite a few have. I mean, it's, right now we're only at about 700 and SAIDit. So, I'm hoping that the others, will find us somehow or some way.
Do you perceive a similar squeezing out of lesbians in the general offline or real life LGBT community? Is that happening as well? And are you concerned about that? And what do you think are steps to preserve that space and community?
So in real life, there is no lesbian space any longer. So any lesbian, the last lesbian bar in my area closed down, I want to say 5 or 6 years ago. And, most others around the country have moved to a more all-inclusive, and it's not that a lesbian bar never, it wasn't, we didn't block people from coming in. People just simply chose not to come in. And, but now, it's really been taken over by everybody other than lesbians. And it's a well-known fact that once a lesbian gets into a relationship, they never leave the house, right? Because we're women. We take care of the home. We're home cooking dinners. We're having parties and social gatherings with our friends, and we invite them over. We're we're very cliquey people.
Yeah. Can I kind of go in a different direction? What is your perception of this new generation, let's say, of lesbians, and your hopes, concerns for them, and
the younger generation? Yeah. So some of my concerns are, one, my major number one concern is that the LGBT community is being ripped apart, and because there seems to be this really weird divide between the L and the G and the B, T, and all of the other letters. And and I can only say that the hate that's come from all of the other letters toward the lesbians, makes the lesbians want to say, all right, so, there's actually petitions out there to drop the L, and just let it be the GBT, plus community, and let the lesbians just go and be themselves, because we're already a vulnerable group just by being women who are attracted to women, and, that are men exclusive. We're already that vulnerable group. And then to have, people in our so-called, community attack us in addition to all of the men out there, it's like, wow, where do we go now? This was our family, and it's almost like, being ostracized from the home. So my concern is, number one, the LGBT community is getting a great divide. And number two is that the younger generation, will, and I've saw it on my own sub on Reddit, that these teenagers would come in and say, oh my gosh, I didn't know that I was allowed to just be attracted to other girls. Is this really okay? Am I allowed to do this? Yes, you are. It's not whether you're allowed to or not. It's who you are as a human being, and I'm very concerned that many of the younger kids, the teenagers, are being, cattle shooted into one direction or another, because it fits with the more, fluid, queer, accepted culture. And and if that's who you are, that's great, by all means, do it. But there are so many young girls that start to detransition. They started to transition into males that by the time they hit their 20s or go to university, they're like, wait a minute, I'm not sure that this is the right choice for me, because now they're adults and they're starting to think, like adults. And instead of being, guided into one direction or another, they can start to think for themselves. And, so I'm concerned a great deal for the younger generation who is being steered and not really given the autonomy to think for themselves, and to find out who they are before steering them into, one thing or another.
Do you have an idea of where that came from into the community or the Q-munity? Like, is it from the Q theory or like that normativity that's now shaping the young generation? Do you have any insights into that? Where that started or where it came from?
I really could not say definitively one way or another. I just could not. I recall seeing posters at my doctor's office that, if you are gender nonconforming, talk to us about, about transitioning, if this is something that, you want to do. Okay. And I've heard, many girls, say that, just because they cut their hair short or they wore masculine clothes or, did not act feminine and didn't wear makeup and skirts, that, their friends were pressuring them to transition to male, and I don't know if this is going on with the young males being pressured into transitioning into females. I have no history or information on that. I would only hope that that's not the case. If this is who you are, like I said before, I think I've already said it on our chat today, you've got one shot at life. This is not a trial run. You can't be doing anything just to please, those 10 people on the other side of, on the other side of the door, right? Because you're the one who's going to have to live with these decisions for the rest of your life. And, and I just certainly hope that kids talk to somebody, the teenagers, and the prepubescents, and, find somebody to talk to and say, is this really the right thing for me? And just, before you start making irreversible changes to your body and your being, because the detransition part is hard. It's hard. It's a mental thing. It's a physical thing. And, and all of a sudden the people in the communities that you thought were your friends are no longer your friends because, they feel like you've let them down, and that's just not right. I don't know. It's just not right.
In previous decades or previous years before this particular pressure to conform, or if you're non-conforming to gender, you need to reconform by means of medical transition or social transition. Was there an operative sense of gender in that sense previously, or was it more about sexuality? Was that like the central meeting ground?
No, I'm certain I've always separated, trans from the sexuality, right? Because just because you transition your body from one to the other, that doesn't mean that your sexuality goes with it, right? Because that's not going to change. The only thing that's changing is the physical shell of the body, right? So, for instance, I know these two women. They're in their 80s now. They've been together for 60 years, 60 plus years. And, when they got married, it was a man and a woman. And about 40 years ago, Jody had to actually leave the United States, go to Europe in order to get the gender reassignment surgery. And I'm not sure if that's even the politically correct term to use anymore. But so she had to go to Norway and get this surgery done so that, and then and she had to change her name. She had to change everything about her. But when she came back from Europe, she was, no longer John, but it was now Jody. And And, and her wife stood by her the entire time. They're still married. They're just an amazing couple. And we had a screen showing of the Stonewall riots, and we had her as a guest speaker to, because she was there. And just to sit, and I could sit and talk with her for hours and hours and hours and never get bored, because the stories, holy smoke, Ben, the stories, but so, was it different? It was not about wearing dresses. It was not about, conforming or non-conforming, or, or changing your sexuality, or becoming the opposite gender so that you could marry somebody. It was never, that wasn't what it's about. And as a matter of fact, it shouldn't be what, transgenderism is about. It should really be, being who you are, what's right for you, and there just seems an awful lot of people right now that are finding that that they are trans right now. So is it a fad? Is it one of those things that, like, hey, all of the cool kids are doing it, like dyeing your hair purple? I don't know. But that, and that's just simply, my ignorance from not, being knee deep in that community, right? I'm not out there in the clubs, and I'm not, in the different LGBT groups, and alliances and stuff like that, in schools and universities and things.
Are you hopeful or beyond your concern? What do you think needs to happen for female spaces to be conceptualized in the mind of the public as necessary and then implemented or allowed to exist? What are some of the things that you think need to happen?
Sorry about that. I tried to shut Slack off, and I told you I have employees that just love to Slack me when I'm.
They need you. You're a very necessary part of their day. I'm convinced.
It doesn't go off all day long until I get onto a video chat. What needs to happen? And Ben, I don't know we're going to get them back. I can only hope that we do get them back, because as the lines between gender continue to blur, the women are going to get just pushed off to the side. So. The men currently rule the world and will continue to rule the world for the foreseeable future. Then you will have, the non-binary, community, which, is neither male nor female, and they're going to quickly take over, spot number 2. And, true to course, the women will be, at the bottom of the heap. So, just, and I don't know right now. So like, if you were to go onto Twitter, right, and you take a look at the hashtag Reddit hates Twitter, Reddit hates women, right? And then, and so now even Twitter hates women is starting to materialize, and, but the people that are speaking up about the inequalities that are happening towards women, they're being targeted with hateful responses. Look at J.K. Rowling, right? The backlash that just simply because she was supporting women, the backlash that she got, the boycotts of her books, and the hate messages and the death threats. So every time a woman tries to stand up and says, "Hey, I'm woman, hear me roar," and you're branded a turf, and you're called hateful, and and everybody wants to boycott your stuff. So what do we want to be? Do we want to be successful professional businesswomen, and keep our mouths shut as we've always been told to do? Or, do we want to stand up and pave the way for future women, to come in and be able to lead this country or other countries or any country, and truly make women equal to the rest of the human beings, on the planet, and I don't even know what that would look like, Ben. I just don't.
If you were, well, I don't know why. Sometimes I ask a question. If you were asked a question and then I ask, I don't know why I preamble. That doesn't make any sense. So, what would you like to see from males? What's the proper allyship or proper chivalrous behavior that you would that you think would be helpful from men?
So I've seen such a transformation in men over the years. In my line of work, when I first started, it was a very male-dominated business, and then some of the women got together, and and we started building and advancing women, and fill in the blank, whatever the career path is, and the men have been very, welcoming. As a matter of fact, I know many businessmen who actively seek to hire women in their businesses, to increase the diversity. And I'm not just talking about women, but I'm also talking about, people of color, and the entire diverse gamut, whether it's, gay, straight, somewhere in between, doesn't matter. People are actively, trying to include, diversity in all of their things. And, so I think that the men in the world, well, at least in the United States and the UK and Australia, these are the three places I can speak for, right? I don't have many contacts in Asian countries or South American or even African countries. So I can't really speak to some of those, but I can say, in the, in North America, UK, and, Australia, the men are really starting to step up and say, hey, listen to this woman, oh my goodness, the Prime Minister of New Zealand, she's amazing, right? And Angela Merkel, right?
In Germany.
From Germany. And, these women are just amazing people. And they have tons and tons of support from their male counterparts, and people are, starting to listen to them. So what does a male ally look like? This looks like somebody who's not afraid to say, hey, that's my boss, and man, she is way smarter than I am, right? And just like, let's hear what she has to say, because I've heard her talk about this topic, and, I think she can, tell us a lot. And so, those, the male allies, I think, will, step back and, kind of push their female counterparts ahead so that they can, they can succeed. We're not asking anybody to put their own career goals on hold. Just try not to step on our heads along the way. So, maybe, put a hand out if the stream is really deep. I don't know. But
well, thank you for your time, and thanks for digging into this.
I hope it was interesting.
It was fascinating for me.
So, because I really, really appreciate your time and, giving us, just another little space on the interwebs.
Just an hour at a time,
Right? Yeah.
Do what I can.
I really do appreciate your time and everything that you've done for us. So I'm looking forward to, to seeing the comments. Hopefully some of them are supportive.
I can't promise a completely non-contentious thing, but I think it will be valuable for a segment of my audience to hear what's going on, what's gone on, and be expanded by this knowledge.
Right. So, well, I hope that I give them that piece. Anyway, so thank you again for having me on your show, and I really appreciate your work and everything that you do.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to end the recording there. Thank you. Congratulations for reaching the end of the podcast. If you enjoyed this product, consider donating to this channel via paypal.me/Benjamin Boyce or joining me on Patreon. Also follow me on Twitter at Benjamin A. Boyce. Have a good night.